one very impressive phenomenon that enables us to begin to test the theory, and that is lucid dreaming. Is Steve LaBerge here? Hey, this guy put this phenomenon on the scientific map something like 20, 25, 30 years ago, and was a real pioneer in the establishment of the science of lucid dreaming. Prior to that time, certain people had written about lucid dreaming, and they were creditable people, but Stephen brought lucid dreaming into the laboratory, and what I'm telling you builds very strongly on his work. With Ursula Voss in Germany, we've been studying lucid dreaming using quantitative EEG measures. Now, you don't need to know what a quantitative EEG really measures, but it measures the electrical power under, say, 30 electrodes on the brain. And when a subject is awake, there's a lot of activity in the frontal part of the brain, okay? So secondary consciousness, I would say, is a frontal lobe function, all right? You've got to have your frontal lobe in order to know what day it is, know what to pay attention to, what to ignore, what to believe what I'm telling you or not believe what I'm telling you. All of these matters are secondary consciousness features, and they are frontal lobe functions. And you see this very clearly when you measure frontal lobe activity using quantitative EEG. Now, when the subject goes to sleep and enters REM and starts to dream, the frontal lobes are not reactivated. So no wonder you can't think, no wonder you can't remember, no wonder you can't direct activity. You are completely controlled by the automatic activation of the brain, and it's coming from the back of the brain. So lucid dreaming, Steve, is for me a functional split brain preparation in which the frontal lobe is out of the picture or comes back into the picture just as it is in waking. And so what it turns out that the frontal lobe activation of lucid dreaming is exactly midway in intensity between non-lucid dreaming, REM sleep dreaming, primary consciousness but no secondary consciousness, and waking with a lot of frontal lobe activation. And so it's exactly, it is both, the brain is both awake and dreaming at the same time. And I think that's a very exciting concept because we always thought that it was either one thing or the other, that you're either awake or you're dreaming. But now we know that you can be doing both. And that enables you to think about lots of things in psychiatry that are characterized by what is called dissociation. Dissociation is the linking of one set of characteristics to another set of characteristics that aren't supposed to be linked together. So the brain is capable of dissociation, and the brain dissociates automatically in lucid dreaming. And I think that's a very exciting part of the story. Now, there are some other things that we'd like to do to begin to test this theory, but what we need to do most importantly now is to make sure we've got the theory straight and then begin to think about other experiments that we might do to test it. In other words, what I'm telling you is that instead of thinking of dreaming as an unconscious mental state, think of it as an altered state of consciousness. Think of it as the only difference between dreaming and waking, the most impressive difference, is the failure of memory. But dreaming is very good at certain things that waking is very poor at. Dreaming is very good at imagining images. I don't know about you, but when I'm awake, I can't hallucinate. But when I dream, I do this very easily. Now, I use a language like hallucination because I'm a psychiatrist. You see what I'm talking about, don't you? I'm talking about mental illness. Dreaming as a model for mental illness, in which your capacity to hallucinate is increased, and your capacity to believe things that could not possibly be true is increased, but your capacity to evaluate those things, think about them critically, is decreased. And so we've also done a study in which we take normal subjects and we record them sleeping at home, and we've gotten something like 1,800 reports. And we score the reports for the presence of internally generated imagery, hallucinations, and its sharp rise from waking almost nothing to a very strong peak in REM sleep. And then we also subject the same reports to measures of secondary consciousness thinking, and it goes in exactly the other direction. So just in the same way that the phenomenology, the subjective experience of sleep and dreaming is reciprocal, one thing going on, the other going off. The physiology is one thing going on, one thing going off. Also, the capacity to think, the capacity to have secondary consciousness as against primary consciousness going on and off. So we've got a three-way correlation going for us, and we're very excited about that. And